Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Tourists. I am your host Tom Jordan and I am joined as ever by the regular team, Dani Magellan. Say hi, Dani.
Hi, Dani.
Classic joke, never gets old. Sam Bean, also known as the Ghost Gimp.
Hello.
And paranormal expert Ross Andrews.
I am him.
He is him.
Here we are back together once again talking about, I use this term loosely, our research of tales of the paranormal, where we will in turn discuss various bits and pieces that we have found interesting to do with the world of the paranormal. I'm going to kick off once again with a brief but interesting tale that comes
Where's it
from
Tom?
my favourite research tome, and that is Peter Eldon's Amazing Spooks and Mysteries.
I've never heard of this book.
I always in my head, looking at the artwork, I always remember as an Usborne book, but it's not. It's published by Dean in 1992.
I just love the illustrations.
Yeah, and interesting enough, it's actually an amalgamation of two different books, and this is from
my
the first
goodness.
half, Amazing Ghosts and Ghouls. So this is a little tale entitled The Agreement. The crux of what it's about, it's to do loosely with communication between the living and the dead. And essentially what is alleged to have happened is that a gentleman, when he was a student in Edinburgh, a gentleman known as Lord, and I'm going to be completely honest and say I've got no idea how to pronounce this, Browham.
Can we just check that you're just doing lots of different pronunciation? He doesn't have like a quadruple barrel.
It's a really long name. Brougham.
Brom.
Is that that's from Sam Bean there?
No,
It's the
I think
official.
you just threw up.
So I have a lot of signs.
I feel like I want to point out this is not unprepared. I have been staring at this name for a very long period of time and I still can't work out how to pronounce it. But either way, he had a long discussion with a friend of his about their ideas on the possibility of life after death. And they made an agreement, as the title suggests, that whichever one of them died first would make an attempt, if possible, to contact the other from the other side. And they finished their studies, they left Edinburgh, and they largely forgot about this particular subject, at least the Lord in question did so. However, many years later, interesting little detail in here, he was stepping out of his bath. Of all the times for someone to try and get in touch from the other side, he was just stepping out of the bath.
Just trying to have a bath.
I suppose it could have been worse. We won't go into more details as to how it could have been worse, but needless to say, he was stepping out of his bath and sitting before him in a chair. He saw his friend. The aforementioned friend he'd made this agreement with. He noted in his diary the day, as you did in those days, noted in his diary the date of this particular event. Obviously, it was an unusual event. And he discovered a few days later, on the arrival of a letter from India, that his friend had in actual fact died on that particular date. It doesn't have the year, but the 19th of December is the date on which he was visited by his friend, allegedly visited by his friend who sat in the chair as he was getting out of the bath, and was also the date that his friend had died in India.
So unfortunately, we don't have any more information. Like, he didn't sort of say anything, or he just physically saw
He
what
Yes.
we
just
think.
was sitting in the chair.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entertaining little doodle of the guy sitting in a chair waving, but there is no more
Guessing
information.
that wasn't drawn in the diary.
I'm guessing it wasn't, no. And I can't find any more information. I'll continue to keep researching this and see if I can find out anything else about the particular subject.
Well known. It's very similar to doppelgangers, which we've covered before. But this happens a lot. And most people will end up going, oh, yes, a friend of mine said such and such died and they knew this straight away. The similar thing is where you know where someone is about to phone you and they phone you and all that kind of stuff. So the idea is that you're psychically linked to somebody so that when that person is reaching out to you psychically, and you are creating an image of them within your brain because you're thinking, oh, I'm thinking Tom, and your brain's going, yes, he looks like blah, blah, blah. And it creates an image. And so there's a possibility that the person dying on the other side of the world is giving off this huge amount of energy, if you believe in this, and the other person's getting the signal. And all they're really getting is, hang on, there's a lot of energy coming from Tom, sat opposite me here. If he suddenly disappears, then I'll tell you. And the brain goes, oh, I will make a picture of that because that's what we're thinking about. And that's technically the idea behind it. And it does happen a huge amount. I mean, if we ask our listeners here to write in, well, don't, because I don't want to have hundreds of letters coming from people saying, hundreds. Yes, you'll get a load of people that say, yeah, that happened to my auntie Barbara when such and such died, when a dog died, and a hamster saw it at the bottom of the garden with a giraffe.
So if your Auntie Barbara lost her giraffe recently, please get in touch.
My mum believes in that. Whenever we see a feather, she's like, oh, look, there's my
Someone's
dad.
getting in touch.
Yeah, or perhaps a bird has just flown past, which is probably more likely.
Yeah.
Not wishing to belittle their...
No, I totally agree. I'm like, well, no, mum, we're outside.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I've personally had the experience, which is documented in a well-known book called Paranormal Cheltenham. Los Angeles. Now, my nan was very ill and was at Cheltenham General, which is phenomenally haunted as well. And it was kind of likely that she wasn't going to make it through the week kind of thing. I was going to go see her on the Saturday morning, and as I was walking to the hospital, I could see my nan. Now, if you know Cheltenham, I was walking, none of you do, so I'll still explain this. Walking down the Bath Road past the Boys College, which is a fantastically gorgeous sort of Gothic looking building. And that's opposite the hospital. And I was walking past this and I could see my nan stood on the grass, sort of just by the side of the pavement, kind of looking at me. And then she just disappeared. So it was like, right, okay. In my head, that was, she's probably just died. Came around the corner, as I was meeting my mum, who is my nan's daughter, meeting them, and then we were going to the hospital. And as we came around the corner, my mum and her sister were coming out of the theatre, and where they'd been having a coffee, and on their way to the hospital, and said, "Oh, we've just had a phone call from the hospital, and she's just died." And I went, "Yeah, I know." I mean, it's a very vague, weird pseudoscience in the fact, as I'm saying, she's giving off this kind of energy in some way. You've known her for such a long time, you're kind of tuned in to her signal or whatever, and the brain's going, oh, that's she's just switched off the channel, and your brain goes, oh, well, I know what that channel looks like. It looks like my nan, and then it gives you a picture. But yeah, that was a lovely one. There are some morbidity for you.
The only thing I've sort of tended to find, and I'm sure there's some kind of explanation for this, but I find this thing a few times where I sort of go into town, and I'm wandering around, and I'm sort of, there's been a few instances of this, and I kind of see somebody at the corner, and I think, oh no, it's not them. Looks a bit like so and so, whoever it is, and I go on my merry way, and then sort of, 20 minutes later, I'm wandering through someone. I think, oh no, I'm sure. Oh no, I'm sure. I thought that person was whoever it was. Let's say it's Sam Bean. I think, oh man, I thought that was Sam Bean. And then I think nothing of it, and I forget. And it's maybe somebody I haven't seen anyway for sort of 6 months, something like that, a year.
A lot of this relates to your fight or flight response.
Okay.
And what your brain is doing, it's scanning through. When you see something, it will scan through everything it knows until it sees something.
Yes,
that's
yes.
that's the closest thing I think it is. And so it kind of goes. So, say going back to our story about a man in a bathroom, it's a bit hard to do it in that way. But if you kind of half see something out of the corner of your eye and you're thinking about that person, the brain will go, "Oh, perhaps this is what you've just seen."
Yeah. I've
So it's a fleeting glimpse. It suddenly goes, "That's what I saw." And this comes back to why people see faces of ghosts a lot, is because that's the first thing it will go for. If you see, and you'll see people, they'll show you photographs and go, "Oh, look at this face," and it's two dots.
Yeah, and it's like a
and
pattern.
line.
Yes, yeah.
Because your brain is going, "Oh, well, the thing I see the most is
Trying to
faces,"
register
so
with it.
that's what it becomes.
I mean, the additional element to this is what's happened to me a few times is I then subsequently, after thinking I've seen this person 3, 4, 5 times, I then do see that person.
Yeah.
And
that happened the
randomly
other day, didn't it?
randomly bump into them in town, having not seen them for, or really thought about them until that day for
So if
6
you could
months,
start
a year, something
randomly
like that.
seeing lottery winning tickets.
Lottery winning tickets.
Okay, just take note of the numbers.
I'm sure there is additionally, a straightforward explanation for that. But at the time, it always really feels like I'm kind of going, well, maybe I should start guessing the lottery numbers. Maybe I have a kind of
explanation would be that say there's person A and person B, they're both possibly thinking about each other, or person B is thinking about you, for example. So you're picking up on this from miles away, on the other side of the planet even possibly. So you're picking up on this person's thoughts about you. Your brain is there going, oh, well, Bob's thinking about me. And then every time you half see something, your brain's going, oh, was that Bob? Was that Bob? Was that Bob? And so Bob might have every intention of coming to see you, but you had no intention of seeing them. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, sure.
So when you do actually bang into each other, you'll go, oh my God, I've been thinking about you all day. And he goes, yeah, well, I've been coming to see you. But you've been thinking about it because he's been thinking about coming to see you.
Yeah.
Does that? Yeah,
Yes, there's like a kind of connection, so there's a kind of energy.
Yeah. Now,
Interesting.
that's explaining one phenomenon with another load of phenomena. So, but that is that's the sort of parapsychology explanation behind it.
Yeah.
The other explanation, if you're being completely rational, is how many days would you have gone out and not thought about that person,
Sure.
and still bumped into them?
Yeah.
And then it's from a statistical point of view, you have to look at that and just go, oh, hang on, I see him every day.
I mean, the one that, which is in many respects is possibly even more, maybe not far-fetched, but just possibly unlikely, is that maybe the first time I think I've seen that person, I have actually seen that person, just caught them.
And by the fifth time you've seen them, they've gone, damn, I've been trying to avoid it all day.
or at least I've gone, oh, I think that's so-and-so, I think that's Sam Bean. And then gone, now why would it be Sam Bean? He said, well, why would I bump into? That's just too random. I'm not going to bump into Sam Bean. And then my mind is thinking. So then I think, see that person, and it's confirmed in my head it's not that person. And then I see them again, it's confirmed it's not that person. And then they turn up, and I'm like, whoa! I've been thinking of seeing Sam Bean all day, but actually, maybe the first time around, it was Sam Bean anyway. I just tried to rationalise it because I didn't expect to bump into him randomly in town.
My granddad had a similar skill. I remember he came out of hospital once after a...
Thank you for referring to it as a skill.
Affliction.
Well, wait till you heard the story. He came out of
Mental
hospital,
health issue.
and we'd been speaking to the guy that was in the bed next to him. Anyway, he was sat at home, and he hadn't left his flat because he'd had quite major heart surgery, I think, on this occasion. We went round and we were like, oh, are you all right, Grandad? Did you hear anything about... Let's say his name was Bill, because I can't remember. And we said...
Wouldn't it be weird if, in actual fact, it had been Bill?
Maybe it was.
That's the twist.
So Dad and I went to see Grandad, and we said, oh, have you heard anything about Bill? And he said, oh, Bill died. We were like, oh, what a shame. And we thought, hang on, how does he know? He hasn't left the flat. My auntie and uncle came in, and we were like, oh, Bill died. We'd all be chatting to him. He was a lovely guy. My auntie said, no, he hasn't. He didn't die. I saw him in the post office the other day. My granddad just went, oh, well, he's probably dead by now. So it's a similar sort of skill. But he used to kill people off at will.
That's more of a disregard for other people. That is... That's a nice little round.
He was a murderer. And he actually physically killed.
He just knew something that we didn't know.
Hang on. He may have died. Dead. He may have died by now. Hang on. What poison did we use? Was that fast acting?
What temperature is it?
He should have suffocated by now.
Didn't Quentin Tarantino make a film about it?
Oh, very good.
On that note, he's very happy with himself about that.
I think
this week the paranormal tourists are going to the cinema to see Kill Bill.
So let's move over to Dani. Have you got some exciting stuff for us today, Dani?
Oh, thrilling. Yes. Well, this week I've been thinking a lot about Ouija boards.
That's a weird thing to be thinking about.
Yes, it is. It's been distracting.
Have you been thinking about them and then one has turned up?
And then suddenly, what do we find here? No,
Those are
I
Jaffa
have
cakes.
always been quite interested in Ouija boards.
These Ouija boards are delicious.
They are lovely and tasty and light, but perhaps not a biscuit. Ouija boards were actually created by Hasbro, I believe, as a toy for children.
Shut up.
I will not.
Parker
it's an audio
Brothers.
podcast.
Parker Brothers, I think.
Parker
I
Brothers.
think.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think Hasbro certainly do make Ouija board. I feel like
Rewind.
maybe the first people to have to check. Maybe the first people to produce them on
There's
mass
been
parks. I think they've been around.
Okay.
There's been an evolution. They've been around for a long time. I think the Victorians were big into
but
Ouija
they
boards.
but they were originally created as a children's game or toy.
What was the original objective? Was to
speak to the dead, just like children like to.
No.
Smelling it?
It was more to do with your ability to communicate with your own subconscious. You weren't talking to spirits; you were talking to yourself. And there was a thing called a spirit board and the Ouija boards and so on. They had various different things, but I'll let you carry on. Because
Sorry.
I mean, you know much more about it, but that essentially, so it was originally a game. And so it's now people seem to think it's kind of, this really old mystical, oh my goodness, a Ouija board from the 7th century. But in fact, they've only been around in not so much ye olden day, but ye newer day.
they used to sell really, really well until one year when
really?
suddenly it dropped off completely. And that was the year The Exorcist came out. And then suddenly nobody wanted to play with them anymore.
Because if you remember in The Exorcist, she talks to Captain Howdy. And I think it was the first time that it had been then related to an evil, like a sort of
To
evil.
some extent, yeah. I mean, they had been used in all seances and so on like that. But the original Ouija boards, because people say, oh, it means yes, yes. In
I was literally about to ask that. What
French
is
and German.
Ouija?
Well,
Yeah,
there's a couple of theories.
yeah.
One is that it means yes, yes, which doesn't make any sense because it should say yes, no.
Yeah.
But
Be like,
the
we
other
know.
one was that the actual company that brought them out had a Ouija board session and said, what do you want to be called? And the board itself said
Spelled out Ouija.
Ouija. All right, and spelt out Ouija on the board. And so the actual the game named itself.
Fantastic.
But the medium that was doing the seance had a locket around the neck and with a picture inside it, and apparently this is, I'm vaguely remembering this, the person of the painting was named something like, was similar name to Ouija. It was like, I can't really remember
Louisa.
what name. Yeah, but it was a foreign sounding name, but I can't remember. It was closer to Ouija. Oh, that's it, I'm being possessed.
It's Captain Howdy back for revenge.
But what happened is the Spiritualist Church took the Ouija board and said, oh, brilliant, we can all have a go with that and start communicating with dead people. It came from the Planchette and Spirit talking boards and so on, and they took this and went... And we're really looking back at a time where Freud and subconscious and ego became such a massive thing that everyone went, oh, that sounds interesting, why don't
Let's
we
play
try
around with
talking
it.
to our subconscious? And to some extent, that's why they're so dangerous. It's got nothing to do with dead people that makes it dangerous. The dangerous thing is if you start messing around with your subconscious and your inner thoughts without really knowing what you're talking about, you can unleash all unknown kind of demons on people. And I don't mean like spiky horns going, whoa, I will burn you. I mean demons that are just like deep-rooted thoughts that you didn't even know you had and so on. And suddenly this all comes out. Now, if you are from a particular religion, that can be very deep rooted, going back to sort of childhood, and you're accessing thoughts that you only half understand because you were a child when you were told about people burning in hell forever and so on. And so it creates these things and just goes, oh, well, there we are. That's what you want. You need these people that are coming back from the dead to speak to you. Also, if you're doing a Ouija board, if you take a very scientific approach to it, you will get really boring answers. Really boring. Whereas the classic Ouija board is a bunch of teenage girls all getting drunk or whatever and suddenly contacting the devil. Because there's this heightened expectations. You've been watching a horror film, you've been whatever. And so that's what's in your head when you're doing it.
Like mass hysteria almost.
Yeah.
I have never done one, although I would love to try. My mother has, bless her, in the
just before she levitated and her head fell out.
just before horns grew from her head. No, she and some friends decided to do a Ouija board. I don't know whether they'd been drinking, probably, but they were in Manchester, and they were at one of my mum's friends' houses, and they started doing it. And her friend had a dog who was asleep on the rug. Anyway, they started.
Died.
Oh, you wish. No. I have no information on how the dog is now, although chances are we're talking about 40 years ago. So they started doing this Ouija board. The dog like growled or something, or kind of in its sleep sort of made like a type noise, and they all screamed and refused to go anywhere near the board. So that's like my mum's entire
Your
experience.
Mum has communicated with a farting dog.
So she always, when I was younger, she used to warn me away from messing about with things you don't understand.
There could be animals farting near you if you use these things.
But yeah, that was her whole. But it really freaked her out, and so she never went near one again.
I've never done it either.
I know they can be really, really freaky. If, as I said, you are bringing to the Ouija board everything that you have ever learnt or half learnt in your entire life. That's what you're bringing to it. So if you've come from quite a religious background that's particularly like the Catholicism, where it's burning in hell and all that kind of stuff, then you're going to believe, even if you don't believe now, at some point when you were a child, you believed in these sort of demonic things. And that could be what you're unleashing on the world. Yeah. Whereas if you come from another religion that believes in a different type of thing, that's what comes through. What often comes through Ouija boards, not so much now, but you're going back, say, 20, 30 years, people would communicate with Hitler. And the evil that would come through because of that. Whereas now that's much further in the past. Young people aren't really going to have that on their mind. Whereas they might come up with something that's a bit more based on the latest horror film or Game of Thrones or something. So they'll start thinking.
So it's in pain. Oh
my god! I've got Sean Bean.
Several times.
He's saying,
in multiple roles.
When did you die? In every film.
Every time I appear on screen.
So yeah, Ouija boards, they can be hysterical, lots of fun, but they can really freak people out. We did a great one. The Paranormal Festival in Cheltenham. At the Playhouse Theatre, we had a coffin on the stage.
Oh my goodness.
Empty?
Yes, an empty coffin on the stage.
Sorry.
But not by the end of the night. An empty coffin on the stage, and we had a Ouija board on top of the coffin. And the reason we had this is you can fit quite a lot of people round this coffin. That is like a little thinner table sort of thing. So they're all doing this Ouija board.
Very practical.
And then the whole evening finishes. Lots of interesting things have happened and so on and so on. And then a week later, I got a phone call from the theatre manager, and he said, right, We've often had complaints before, and we've had to deal with lots of things over my time here, but this is the first time anyone has phoned me up and complained because they've taken a demon home with them after doing a Ouija board on our stage. And I went, what the hell? And he reeled off this story, said, yeah, somebody has said that they're possessed from the ghost hunting night you did on the Ouija board on the stage, and apparently you didn't close the Ouija board properly, and they've taken home this demon with them. Now, I said,
fancy not closing the Ouija board.
Exactly, yeah.
He's called Ian. He's a lovely guy, but he is a demon.
That, in all fairness, that is value for money.
As I said, you should
A
charge
lifelong event.
You should charge them because now they've got to return it so we can have it for the next night. Anyway, to cut a long story short, there was lots of backwards and forwards of phone calls of the theatre manager just trying to get rid of this woman. One of the people that was working with us decided to go and chat to this person who'd taken the demon home with them. They went round to their house, and it turns out that this person was on a lot of antipsychotic drugs, anti-something drugs and something drugs. And they said, well, what proof, what is it? What's happened? And they said, well, when I got up off the sofa, about 30 seconds later, like the cushion fell off the sofa. And he went, right. Okay. And there was a couple of things of that ilk sort of thing. He went, well, I don't think you've got anything to worry about. Somehow.
Gravity.
Yeah. But you will get, every time you do a Ouija board, someone will tell you the way you're supposed to do it. And I have done hundreds of these things. And I've heard you've got to have a silver coin on it. There's another one where you've got to smash the glass. Another one where you have to say the Lord's Prayer. Another one where...
you can't take your feet off the floor. Is that something?
I mean, there's a million different ways. But every single person that I've done these with, and I do a lot of ghost hunts all over the country where people come from every corner of the country. In fact, we've had people flying from other countries to come to some of our ghost hunts. And every single one comes up with a different story. And you think, well, surely... if your system worked, then that person would have exactly the same system. You've all got different ways of closing these Ouija boards. I've only done 2 Ouija boards in my entire life where we got information that none of us consciously knew. I'm pretty sure we couldn't have known from anywhere, and then checked it out and it actually turned out to be correct. But most of it, you can sit there and just go, oh, well, you knew that already, or you knew that already, and so on. Even if they weren't touching the glass, you think, well, okay, well, if we're going to believe in this stuff, then I may have somehow read your mind and pushed the glass somewhere. But I'm a big fan of them. They're well worth doing, especially if you've got alcohol and you've been watching horror films. Yeah.
What's your so what are your rules, Ross?
I haven't got any.
None.
No, they're just
Freestyle.
Just throw a glass
Honestly,
on the table.
yeah.
Go on then. What?
Everyone has to down a pint beforehand.
The human brain puts a lot of a lot of belief in ritual, and so a lot of these people want the ritual thing because it creates a more of a hypnotic state for you to be in, and then you kind of take it seriously. Whereas if you're all giggling your heads off and going, "This is gibberish, isn't it?" You're not going to come up with anything spooky. So you have these big rituals where people are doing stuff. And if somebody says, oh, this is what you have to do, and they do a whole bunch of things in front of you, you've gone, oh, okay, well, he knows what he's doing then. So, and you kind of, your brain allows you to believe it.
Of course, yeah.
So
that makes me want to go to one and be like, and everyone's got an extra pair of pants to put on their head.
It leaves a potential paranoia, doesn't it, as well? A kind of OCD sort of feeling that maybe you haven't done it correctly. And if you haven't done it correctly,
it'll follow you home.
then it could you could get like a bonus demon coming to follow you home.
Bonus demon.
Yeah. Party bag.
now saying
Bit of cake.
Saying this, I have done Ouija boards and interesting things happen around you whilst it's happening. Not necessarily anything coming through the board, but suddenly something will go flying off the
Yeah,
shelf.
like mug
Yeah.
smash. My friend did one. A mug fell off the windowsill and smashed or something.
Yeah, and the idea is that you then have to look at that and go, would that mug have fallen off and smashed because they've got the window open and the curtain blew it up and all that kind of stuff? And that's when it gets interesting. And I have had quite a few of those. But
Well, I find it quite interesting. A lot of these rituals or these things do start off as games. So there was, I remember when I was at primary school, my friend and I, we ran around the playground thinking that we were seeing, I'm not even sure if we knew what we were talking about. We'd said Bloody Mary into a mirror several times. And we did this in my bathroom at home. And then in the playground at school, like a week later or something.
And we saw loads
of them. But then I remember distinctly running around the playground at school, really freaking out. And we were both going, she's everywhere, she's everywhere, she's everywhere. And to this day, I can't remember whether we were seeing anything or whether we were actively playing a game and just kind of going, oh, she's everywhere, she's everywhere, she's everywhere. But we got quite a few other people at school kind of being like, oh, I can see her as well. And I think by the end of the game, we were like, really? Are you, sorry, what? I mean, we're mucking about.
You could have created a mass school panic.
Yeah.
The
school closed down.
There's a lady in the school with a gun.
But you get a lot of them happening, and they happen a lot. In Japan, you get quite a few of them, where a demon has possessed the toilet and everybody goes in there and uses it, suddenly is ill within a week. And they're all collapsing and they're all seeing the same things. And even going back to Salem, I mean, that's certainly a bunch of kids all started seeing the same things because one person says, I saw this.
Yeah.
And there's a distinct possibility you are genuinely seeing it. Doesn't mean there's anything there, but you have created this thing.
So much that you're starting to, I am 90% sure that we didn't even complete, because I distinctly remember being in my bathroom in my childhood home, and I distinctly remember saying Bloody Mary once, but I am 90% sure we never even said it enough times, because I think we were too scared, but I think we just decided well, we'll say it once and then we'll just start seeing her. We'll just do it that way. And then I watched the film The Candyman and realised I was saying the wrong thing into the mirror anyway. I was supposed to be saying Candyman, but it does interest me that a lot of these things start off as children's games when you go back to their origin. And then all of a sudden there's something...
If you're going back to the origin, quite often they're not children's games. They've become children's games from something else that's happened. And so you've had the spooky thing happen, and it's become... in the same way that fairy tales are horrible stories. They're really nasty horror stories that became children's stories. And so a lot of that sort of becomes the kids' version of something in some form of warning. Don't do this because...
Yeah, like a moral or something.
Yeah.
Or a fable.
Yeah.
There was a great one in Ireland of people seeing a BVM, Blessed Virgin Mary sightings, and a statue, and it's brilliant because it got so famous that a film crew went and saw it. So you've got a load of people that are already hyped up. They're ready to believe this Blessed Virgin Mary statue that was on the side of a hill was moving. And the film crew went and filmed it, and it's brilliant. I don't know if you can see the footage out there, it's quite old. And they're filming the crowd, and they're going, oh, she's moving. And according to all the witnesses, who are all hyped up, they're all waiting and ready to believe in this thing, they can say that the Virgin Mary is doing this. And I can't explain this, obviously, because we're on a recording, where it's moving from side to side in a gentle swaying motion. And they interviewed all these people saying that, and they're all huge believers, and they're all there to see a miracle. And then the film crew sort of pans out a bit, and you see the entire crowd just gently swaying from side to side, like this, staring at a statue that's about 200 meters away. But their brains are so hyped up and ready to see it. They're getting that positive belief or whatever, feedback, and seeing exactly what they thought they were going to be seeing, even though it's not happening.
I mean, the harder you stare at something, the harder it is for it to sort of remain in focus in a weird way. And I've certainly been on sort of amateur ghost hunts where we've just gone out and we're staying in a creepy place, and we're like, right, we'll all go and sit in this room in the dark, and people stare into the dark, and gradually certain people start to see things, and then the person next to them kind of gets a bit creeped out and they see something as well. But if you sit in the dark room and you stare into the dark for long enough, it's amazing how many exciting things you can see, because your eyes will start to do kind of all sorts of crazy things.
And that's the theory behind Candyman and Bloody Mary, that once you turn the light off, your brain starts creating.
It creates images. It tries to see whatever it can. This is an experiment we're going to do on GIMP over here, on a thing called scrying. I will be taking you to a castle that's haunted. Actually, we're going to be doing the theatre as well. And what you do is you stare into a mirror, and the idea is in a low light, and you will see your face change. And the idea is you're supposed to channel spirits that are around you, and their face will appear where your face is. If you're really lucky, you will start seeing the mouth move as though it's talking to you. And then you've got to try and lip read. But if you're really lucky, you will just start speaking whatever it is that it's saying to you.
Ancient Greek.
And I've seen it work a lot. And this is it's a low light thing. As I say, when the lights are off, your brain starts trying to see stuff. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in ghosts or not. It will work. It does work, right? You will look at this thing for long enough, and your face will just change. Quite a lot of people say the head just disappears, and another head comes back that looks different. So it is an experiment we're going to be doing.
I mean, this sounds awful.
But it's St. Revel's Castle. We'll do an investigation there, and the Playhouse Theatre are very good places for this experiment.
Fantastic.
I haven't been to the castle, but the Playhouse is proper creepy, mate.
Creepy.
Proper creepy.
Well, if we want to, I can move on to the Playhouse Theatre.
Oh, I think we absolutely do.
Lovely. That was
seamless.
If it wasn't for the scene we just put in there, that was seamless, wasn't it? Well, the Playhouse Theatre, we're going to Cheltenham again. And I'm talking about the Playhouse Theatre partly because it's to do with the Cheltenham Paranormal Festival, which is we're recording in 2017, and we are looking at the end of September. It's there's some ghost hunts that we'll be doing there. Something like the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, where we'll be doing a lot of these experiments where you can experiment on Ghost Gimp.
Vote now for what you want to do to Ghost Gimp.
Donate what you want on the Ghost Gimp, and we will do things to him. But anyway, this theatre, the Playhouse Theatre, We'll be doing a scrying experiment now, and I won't go into what actually happens during the scrying experiments because we will be doing them there, and I don't want to influence what people see. But one of the famous ghosties there is something you could see if you're a member of the audience. So this is something, book a ticket, go and see a show, and it's quite a cheap, inexpensive, let's say, theatre, and one of the ghosts has been seen by the audience during actual productions, and people have said, oh, I love the show, it's fantastic, didn't understand why that girl walked on and just stood next to the stage and then walked off again. And they're all going, what girl? There was no girl here. I have no idea what you're talking about. And various times that's been seen. It's been seen by stage managers as well on stage, where they've just looked at each, sort of turned around and gone, why is that girl standing backstage? And then gone, hang on, who the hell's that? And they turn back around again, nobody there. That's been seen quite a lot. So if you're from a tourist point of view, go and sit in the theatre, get a ticket, get there nice and early, and hope that you actually see random people walking onto stage and then walking off again. Also, if you're in the auditorium, the balconies of that theatre, and I've seen this one, a strange misty figure. So if you're sat in the auditorium, the balcony on the right-hand side, your right-hand side as you're staring at the stage, I've seen a weird sort of misty figure just stood up there near the follow spotlights. And many, many people have seen that.
I've seen that one.
You've seen that one? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Because I thought it was Alex. I thought Alex
Yes.
was up there. And then he came kind of
From
to the
somewhere
side
else.
of me. And I was like,
I'm just unsettled knowing that I have sat there for the duration of a show that I was running
I
the
won't
sound
go up
for.
there. I won't go up there.
What?
The other balcony,
Oh my goodness.
I had to go
me.
into the theatre to talk to the manager, and they said, oh, he's in the theatre, in the auditorium. So I walked in, and as I walked in, you walk underneath that the left-hand balcony, and I heard somebody walk above my head, very clearly, footsteps walking along, you could hear them. So I started saying, Paul, I've just been sent in, they said you're in, I'm going to talk to you, and I kept talking, and then looked up and I realised there was nobody up there. Could still hear the footsteps walking, and yet nobody up there at all. So that's 3 ghosts that you can see at the Playhouse Theatre just by sitting in the theatre before a show starts. Other people in the theatre may object if you're there going, will you all shut up? I'm trying to do an investigation in here. I've only got 20 minutes before the curtains open. But the rest of the Playhouse, I mean, it's phenomenal. I won't go into too much. But the girl, because this one's now out there in the public, on the internet somewhere, the girl is quite possibly a girl who died, and they finally found out her name, and I won't give that away just yet. It used to be a swimming pool, the whole theatre. So the auditorium, you could still technically flood with water and go swimming in there. And so everyone thinks, oh, she must have drowned. Not true. What happened was, when it wasn't being used as a swimming pool, they used to cover up the pool with wooden boards, and it would be a gym. And there was a big vaulting horse in there and people doing whatever. And this girl was, I've been told, was cycling around the outside of the swimming pool bit and crashed into a vaulting horse, which fell over and crushed her to death. So they think that is the girl. And this story only came to light a couple of years ago. So if anybody was going to come up with a story, you generally think somebody drowned in the swimming pool or whatever. But the age of the girl that's seen seems to correspond with the girl that died in the actual building at the time, which makes it more impressive, I think. Whereas if you knew about the story before you went in there and started seeing a girl, then you kind of think, oh, well, I was expecting to see that. But no one's expecting to see this young girl appear on stage.
It's a very creepy place. I mean, Sam, you haven't been in there, have you?
No.
It is very creepy, and you can go down into where.
Yeah,
exactly
well,
where
if you come to the ghost hunts,
old
we take people
swimming
under the
pool
stage.
steps, it's very.
Where there are a couple of coffins as well under there.
Oh my goodness!
One of which we do Ouija boards on.
Empty.
Probably.
But there's that's not the only death. There's been quite a few deaths and suicides and things in the building. I don't want to give too much away because hopefully several people will be coming to join us on a ghost hunt there.
To learn all about it.
But there are ghosts all over the entire building, and even ones that are non-visible. As I said, I heard the footsteps. A friend of mine, her and her husband were locking the theatre up, At about 2:00 in the morning, they've just finished the shows, done the get out and so on. And so they went around the building, and as you do, there's a particular route you take around the building, locking each door behind you, and then you leave via one particular door, and that way you know everything's locked. And so they're just about to go out of their fire exit door. And they said, well, we'll just do one quick check, go in the auditorium. And they walked in, and they said, they got into the auditorium, and they said, right, come on then, anyone in here? We're locking up. Jokingly, knowing that they're the only two people in there, and they both said they heard "get out," at which point they did, very, very rapidly.
Wow.
As tourists, you won't be allowed.
I was literally about to say, you performing there?
Yeah, I'm going there.
Oh,
In fact, I'm going
you're performing there this week?
Yeah, it's Saturday. And I'm going there tomorrow night for our tech, and Friday night for the dress. But I'll be quitting that show.
Well, the dressing rooms are all haunted. The main auditorium is haunted. The workshops are haunted.
There's an upstairs room, isn't there?
Yeah, those are
past the
yeah,
stone
studio
steps.
room.
Even to get to those upstairs rooms, you're going up a haunted staircase as well. So it's a phenomenal building with at least, I think it's 7 deaths in the building. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah. But we filmed, I will give a spoiler to a TV show we filmed there that should be being broadcast pretty soon. If you know theatres at all, you know you're not allowed to use naked flames. So there's a big gap between naked
Not allowed to use
I wasn't
naked.
sure what object.
I just don't bet that was good.
You're not allowed to use naked. Insert your own noun. Naked flames in the theatre, and you have these special candles that are battery operated and so on. But we were filming there, and there was Ian Lawman from anyone who watches Most Haunted will know he did a couple of series of Most Haunted. And so there was him and a couple of other paranormal investigators and myself and the TV presenter sat around this table, and they said, do you mind if we use candles? We said, well, you're going to have to check with the theatre manager. Thankfully, the theatre manager happened to be there, so they went out and checked with him. And he went, yeah, not a problem. So we sent one of the runners into town and to Poundland to find some candles from somewhere. And he came back. He said, the only candles I could get were these. And he pulled out a bag of 50 tea-light candles that were bubblegum flavoured.
I thought you were going to say birthday candles.
But it was, may as well have been. So we had these bright red little tea-light candles, lit them all, and the whole place just smelt of bubblegum. And so we that made it hard enough, but we all got our hands on this table, sat on the stage, and it's used as a cinema as well. So we've got this bright white screen behind us. So it was reflecting a fair bit of light. And we're sat there for a while, and Ian starts chatting away to the spirits in the room, and the table starts moving. And quite quickly starts you could feel the energy sort of building up in this table, and it was starting to move slowly, and then it started moving quite a bit to the extent that we had to stand up as this table was moving around the stage. The table then lifted up and flew kind of sideways, and all the candles, by which time we've now got 50 molten red candles right on this table, went sliding off the table as the table started flying towards the bright white cinema screen that was going to be projecting a film in 7 hours' time. Thankfully, not a single bit of wax ended up on the screen, but the floor was just covered in this bright red wax. It was like somebody had been murdered on stage. It was this huge expanse of red everywhere. And it's brilliant footage, and I haven't seen the programme yet, but it's out very, very soon. And I went up to the theatre manager. I said, well, very good news and some very not good news. I said, you have got the best episode in this series, right, of stuff that happened. But do you have something like a paint scraper or something like that I could borrow for the next couple of hours, please? And we spent an hour on our hands and knees scraping sort of semi-warm molten wax off of this stage so that it could be used in about 6 or 7 hours' time. Look on the internet, it's there somewhere. I think it's a TV show called Ghost Chasers. I think it's been broadcast already online, but it was made for a European company, so I know it's being broadcast on Sky at the moment. But yes, come and join us at the Playhouse and levitate battery-operated candles, because we're not doing that again.
Some interesting stuff there, but I think that's about it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being part of the Paranormal Tourist, being one of our listeners. All that really remains is to say bye for now. So it's bye from me. It's bye from
me.
It's bye from
someone else.
And it's bye from
him.
We look forward to chatting at you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Bye-bye.